welcome to the weekly review. Myself and James on the line. So first pair we're looking at is the dollar, and if we go to say the weekly chart, and maybe we can even start from the monthly. This close here is pretty much confirms we go lower, very very likely we go lower before even if there's a recovery. Um, but haven't had this candle and this kind of wick at the bottom. Obviously, there's buying pressure. So, maybe we could have a kind of a dead cat bounce, maybe slightly up. If we go to the weekly chart, we've got 2 weeks in a row. So maybe we'll have another week as well. So next week into next week, we could have another week of it also going up. So another week going up is likely expected. And if we go to 4 hours, we could pick our spot in terms of where we think it will lie. I think, if we put a line somewhere here, somewhere there to there, is where we probably, or maybe if we draw a kind of an area of interest box, uh, then we will draw an area of interest box somewhere here and say, okay, that's where we expect the dollar to kind of rise to, and then and collapse a bit more, collapse below this point again. Would expect it to rally all the way back down again into the low 90s. Then we'll see what happens there. Okay.
Yeah, so I think sideways at best, and more than likely we're gonna grind out the bottom of this support of this broadening wedge here.
Mm.
Then I think probably sometime end of this year, Trump will try and bring us back around. But I think this summer will be a key time for stuff like Bitcoin and gold to have a run.
So Nasdaq's looking good on the monthly chart. So we had a big, beautiful rejection of lower prices here, right? Close to the 50, all the way back up to technically where we got rejected from, which is crazy. So it's looking good. But I think with this sort of candle, I'd expect some eating into this candle, maybe similar to here, like the way we ate back into this, we ate back quite well into it. So I'd expect some eating back into it on the monthly chart, which means maybe the whole of mm, May could be eating into it. Who knows? Weekly, I think next week definitely we'll have a pullback, and we could have the next week becomes another pullback, um, and you could have 3 weeks pullback to then form a proper move to the upside. Um, this we are kind of above a key moving average of the 50 EMA, which is good, but if we break it, then that you can expect some really really low pullback levels. So that's what I'll be watching, in terms of do we break this? But I think next week we'll do a retest of it. It will be a retest. And then the daily, we've broken above the 200 EMA. So definitely there is a retest of it waiting. Um, and I think, here it could be my area of interest if there's any push to the upside, because this is a resistance line. This is the 200 MA, simple moving average. So that becomes a resistance zone, and there's also resistance up here. So this is a resistance around the 2363. So this definitely becomes a resistance. I think we could poke here into somewhere there, double top, and then pull back and close this gap we've got here, which is sitting around 18263 before we go up. Yeah. So, and if we want to see whether actually is this are we likely to even go into the box, then we go to lower time frame to find out. And 4 hours, we've had this big volume coming to the market, and it's been followed by a red candle. So, and that red candle certainly goes above that. So that's not good. So potentially, and we've also closed inside the KC channel, which means there's more downside. There's definitely more downside here as opposed to upside. Even if we step it up to the 1 hour chart, it doesn't look good. I mean, MACD is still red, and this thing's already started going down. We haven't closed above. We didn't close above this candle. We just went into the wick of that candle, which suggests actually continuation to the downside, more likely. If it closed above it, would have been more positive. So I think it goes down straight away as opposed to going up. But if you're going to take a short, then just be mindful that we could get into this box. So you take maybe 5% here and then another 5% there, you'll be all right.
All right. Well, very cyclical stuff from Nasdaq here. I do think that this week when we come up, we open around this 20,381 level of that mid Bollinger Band. I think that's going to be a big push down on price, and I think we're going to see days of lower prices up until about mid-July, um, just because of the cyclical pattern that we have around this Bollinger Band lower. Um, though sometimes it can skew from the average. You could pause the video and take a look at what I got going on here, but eventually there will be higher prices. I'm just saying be careful of the downside risk here because each time when we've breached this lower Bollinger, after we've had our run, there has been some weeks of sideways and lower prices. Right here, we only had 2 weeks. Right here, we had something like 6 weeks. Here, it was very, very long and drawn out of, a couple weeks up, more weeks of down. This one lasted a couple months. So just be weary. We're going to have consolidation here. We just had a big move, and it's looking to turn around mid-July. So that's all I got for Nasdaq.
So next one is the SPX. And to be honest, the XPX is very similar to the Nasdaq for me. Very, very similar chart layout, except, the Nasdaq probably looks a bit more, I would say, stronger because we had a really bullish candle here, which was green. But the pattern is the same. And if I look at it from a 4 hour perspective again, I would expect this to come down because, we've gone outside the KC channel, we've closed back in the KC channel. So, and yes, we can still push a little bit. We can, but I think I would expect the downside similar to, the Nasdaq. We do a retest of this 200 and we see what happens there. If we break this, like I put it, I don't want price to fall below here. Or we head down to close the gap, which is down here. So that's the key test for me on this. If we close here on the daily chart below here on the daily chart, then I'm expecting it to definitely come all the way down here. So that's it for me on this, and I'm going to pass it back to, yeah, we're
All
going.
right, guys. So um, we got SPY looking a lot better than Nasdaq. Retailers, I think, are turning around a little bit more. Um, I do think this week we might be able to come into some of this liquidity up here, just how bullish it looks as of right now. But as I said for Nasdaq, we're going to need some consolidation after after that big move down. We're going to need some time for the market to really decide what it's going to do. I don't think we get a V-shaped recovery. And even if we do, we're still going to come out and print a shoulder for a head and shoulders to go ahead and move up. The consolidation is going to have to come at some point. Don't get foolish with greed. It will come eventually.
Okay, so gold, yeah, so if you look at it on a monthly perspective, then this is a really good strong candle. It's outside the KC channel, which means potentially there's a little bit more to the upside on the monthly chart, but there's also a pullback, I think, in there back to the KC channel, similar to how we kind of did it here. So you have two candles to the upside, break up two candles, or maybe even here, you could go a few months outside the candle, and then it kind of ends with this bullish candle, which is really strong volume, one of the biggest volume across all the months. as you can see, then you pull back to continue. So I'd expect the same thing here. We've had our, few months, maybe one, two, three, four. This is the fourth month outside the KC channel. And even here, we did the same one, two, three, four outside, and then we did a correction. So one, two, three, four, I'd expect this to come back to the KC channel line inside and then show strength by going closing outside. So if we come back this month, we pull back this month into it, and then we just close outside, that would tell us, okay, there's a little bit more upside. But yeah, it's not looking eminent that we'll be going crazy on gold. Uh, there was a good pullback in there. And then if we bring it back to the weekly chart as well, um, we had a stopping candle. As soon as I saw this stopping candle, I knew we were going to go down. And last week, I think me and George were discussing that. So, definitely come down. We've done that. We've closed inside the KC channel on the weekly chart. So we are inside it, closed inside, which means there's more downside first. And I think, the nine becomes a very attractive area, this nine here. So I would probably say I would take profit somewhere here on a short because sometimes these moving averages, it could zip down, but you got to play it safe. So I'd expect more downside next week. Then also we close red on the weekly, red volume, more likely you go down. Even if there is a small bounce to the upside, which could be maybe somewhere here around 3279, 3280, even way back up here, 3326, you're still going to come below this candle first before you go anywhere. So, and the daily, it's not looking good on the daily either because, we close below, we try to go, we've been rejected on the middle 20 EMA, so we close below it. Well, that's not good. A lot of selling pressure at the top. And if we go to 4 hours, so 4 hours, we have a few pink candles that need to be exceeded as well. And I'd expect this candle to be exceeded. So here you go. So this is the bounce of this candle, this big selling, to kind of, fake people from closing their shorts. And we continue the journey. So, back to maybe this zone here, would be an area to kind of consider, taking some profit. So that's what I'm seeing on gold.
Well, now I am hesitant to call tops on things that look this bullish with these kind of bullish signatures, but if this were red, we would call it a Darth Maul candle. Looks like Darth Maul's lightsaber. It is a little concerning. We do see these at tops. It's something to look at. So let's go into the weekly and see how that's playing out. I look at this and I see unsustainability. We have gone parabolic and it is just unsustainable. So, could we run higher? Sure. But looking at these volume signatures, the sellers are starting to really be happy with these prices and they're starting to come out of the woodwork. You see here these four green candle bars, big red candle. So there's some sellers there. And then we had some more red and pink sellers come out of nowhere. So this is just going to continue to grow. The sellers are matching all of the buyer's volume, and this pink candle really looks like a top candle. So I am hesitant to call a top, but I will do it. I think we start to head sideways a little bit and probably higher prices eventually after we break out of this band and consolidate a little bit. I think gold will have a run this year in 2025 as well, higher, but as far as a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two of consolidation, it won't be the end of the world for gold, but I think it has higher prices as far as this year, and that's all I got for gold.
Okay. So we just covered the VIX slightly, just quickly, really. This is the volatility index, so it helps to tell us, what can you can expect. If this thing's going up, then everything is collapsing. And this is exactly what you saw in the last, early ending of March and April, you saw, the stock market just crashing, crashing, crashing during this phase here. And since the volatility index cooled off, you can see that the Nasdaq and everything else has been going up. So, and looking at this on a weekly chart, I expect more downside. So I expect volatility to calm down in the markets. You're not going to get those big swings anymore because of this. We've got a big red candle here, and I would expect another one at the very least to test this here, to test the 50 EMA before maybe we might see some bounce on it. So a lot more um, calmness in the market, I think, is what we are likely expect to see coming going into next week with this sort of candle on the volatility index. So yeah, that's the volatility index. Uh, and I'm gonna Okay, so next thing is the Bitcoin dominance, and the Bitcoin dominance is on a tear at the moment. I think I'm seeing this here. Um, I mean, I would love to have seen big volume come in at the top here. It's reasonable volume, but it's not like if I compare it, it's not like it's small, small. Um, so that I have a question whether we have another big one that comes in, but with these KC channel and stuff closing outside it, 2 weeks outside, it tend to come back in. We've done this closed outside and we go 1, 2. And so I'd expect that next week we may poke above this candle and then collapse back into the band would be what I would expect on Bitcoin dominance. So, and if I go to even the daily and have a look at it, you can see how choppy it is. There's a lot of hesitation in the candles. The candles can't seem to even close, so we couldn't close this outside, couldn't close this outside, and today we are very unlikely to close outside the KC channel, which will suggest a breakdown. And if I bring it down to 12 hours, we've got a better indication of what's going on. And you look at this and you see there's divergences here to there. This is a stopping candle for me. And then we get another follow-up through, okay, we get a slight bounce, but this is normal. And if by 1 midnight we close this red, then that's it for me on dominance. They will then collapse down, which means the altcoins can really kind of get energy to run. So that's what I'm seeing here. And if I even bring it down to 4 hours, 4 hours is also the same. MACD is weak. Again, if I look at this on MACD, our MACD is getting weak. Energy flow is not there. It's weak. We are below zero. RSI hasn't crossed. So but I think the acid test will be, this thing here closing below the 9. If it closed it below the 9, that will be a perfect, perfect, perfect. So maybe a bit more, we need a bit more time. It's looking promising, I would say, but not confirmed in terms of the breakdown. 12 hours looks really good, but I'd like to see another red candle and I'd like to see it close below this candle here. We're closing higher and higher, which is not what you want. You want lower, lower closes. So if we start closing below this candle here, red candle close below this, that'll be positive and that will tell us actually, okay, energies to the downside. So that's Bitcoin dominance. Okay, right. So if we look at total three as well, this is all the altcoins, top 100 altcoins excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. Um, you can see we had these big candles to the upside and we having kind of like a pullback, which is normal. I think we come and retest the 50 EMA. And for me, it's important that this holds because if it doesn't hold, then, potentially you're looking at coming all the way down here around 692 billion, which is not going to be good for altcoins. It means likely Bitcoin dominance will go higher below the 50. And if it does that, that'll be really good. And this stays green, then potentially we are going for higher prices on the altcoins. But if it breaks this or if it closes below 758, then you're looking at lower prices, which means the altcoins will bleed more, technically on this total three. Okay, so next one is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin in the weekly chart, still looking positive. Um, do I think we will erase this whole candle? It's possible before midnight. Anything can happen in crypto. Um, Probability wise, I would say no, but I might be wrong here. You know, I would say if you go to the daily chart and look at the daily chart, you'd see there's a pullback. There's a pullback happening here, and our MACD is also kind of tickling down. Doesn't mean we have to go below zero. We can still stay above zero and continue going up. Um, but if you bring it to a lower time frame and look at this, um, this could be a positive candle because obviously it's green and but you would want the MACD also green and it's not green. There's a divergence there, all right. And if I go to 1 hour, drill a bit more down to see what's going on here. Um, we've got some divergences there, yes, some good divergences in play, but it can go down some more. So I think it depends on how this candle close on 4 hours, which will be around like 6 o'clock. Depends on how this closes. If it closes green, looking good, then potentially yes, you could bounce from here. Um, but I don't expect, us to collapse on Bitcoin. I think worst case scenario would be, maybe we come and test here, the middle of this 12-hour chart, and try to go for higher prices would be what I would say. However, we always have to think of the other side of the story, right? So um, if we happen to close, if we happen to close below the nine, then I would expect us to hit here, somewhere here around 91,000. I'd expect that. So it depends on whether we close the day below this or not. If we close above it, then chances are, we might not come there. But if we close below the daily on the nine, then yes, you can expect definitely we'll come into the zone. So it depends on how the close of midnight looks like. And like I say, if I go on 4 hours, it's difficult to tell because the candle this hasn't closed and this is still red. So you know, pretty difficult to tell at the moment with this data we've got. You know, the probability is, it comes down to those zones. There are some pink candles that are waiting to, I guess, be exceeded down here. I don't know. There's a pink candle down here, which is an area of interest, which is sitting around 88K, sorry, 86K. But I don't think we get to 86K on this pullback. I think maybe that'll be in the future when we've gone higher and we're coming back. Maybe that becomes an area that we revisit. Um, so I don't think we come here. Um, I think the worst case scenario will be somewhere around the 91,000. Of course, if we break the 200, then we know, okay, we've got a target to aim for, which is around 86. So all depends on how the next couple of weeks play out.
So it is entirely possible that we just kind of roll over here and kind of drop down to these lower levels I have marked off. So this is liquidity at the 15-minute and the 30-minute inside this big green candle here. So
Mm.
though this green candle isn't breaking our threshold on the daily time frame, which it rarely does anyways, we can kind of break that down into lower time frames. And there is liquidity from here to here and from here to here.
Can you
So these
show
are
us
two
on 15 minute?
levels.
Can you
Yeah,
show
sure.
us on the 15-minute chart?
So the first one is here,
Right.
this candle,
Okay.
and then the second one is somewhere inside these small ones.
Right. Okay, cool. Okay, you can go back to higher time frame. Thank you.
So I do think we run down here. We could roll over from, as it sits right now, Sunday into Monday and open up kind of down here as a fake out. Um, so just to give an example, Monday, 8:30 Central Time for me, market open, Bitcoin could drop down to this level, get a bunch of people to sell their Bitcoin, get a lot of people to short Bitcoin, get a lot of people scared about Bitcoin just for 10:30 a.m. to roll around and they spike price back up. Um,
Okay.
or, something that they could do is, Monday morning at open, price will be up here at 98,000, which is going to do two things. It's going to get people to buy, it's going to make headlines, and also it's going to get some liquidity out of the market as you see from this dark blue line here.
Yeah.
There is liquidity right above this level. There's short stop losses and everything else. So they can do two things Monday. They can fake people out and they can grab those shorts off the table and then drive price back down. That wouldn't be unheard of. And we
Yeah.
can also just kind of roll down and roll over here into this liquidity. Though I will say this, we are above the Bollinger Band, so it is difficult for me to be kind of this pessimistic about Bitcoin. But usually when, we're kind of printing this upward sideways formation, we're just capturing long liquidity just to turn it around on them. Something that does kind of help the short bearish case is the weekly Bollinger. So we are still below, and that number is kind of coinciding with the liquidity level, which is around 99,000.
Yeah.
This upper Bollinger is at about 101. So those two levels are kind of coinciding, give or take $2,500, but this is looming over our heads, and I don't think we'll be able to take this without more consolidation. Just to kind of, give a call back to SPY and NASDAQ and gold, there is going to be a cooling off period for these uh things, and usually it does happen in May, surprisingly enough, sell in May and go away. So I think that might start to play out as we head into spring, mid-spring here.
A quick question before
That's
you
all I
go,
got.
before
Yeah.
we move on. Do you think because gold is likely to pull back, that gives obviously Bitcoin and gold I invest correlate to a degree and not properly, but gold has been going up, Bitcoin was going down. Now Bitcoin going up, gold going down. Do you think because gold is expected to pull down a little bit more, maybe that gives an opportunity
Yeah,
for,
I
for
mean that
Bitcoin to go into
that
that
is
that zone
that is kind
that
of
box?
those patterns that only the seasoned trader can really pick out. If you got to be able to follow that smart money, if the smart money wants to kind of play this push and pull game with gold and Bitcoin, that is possible. And so I'm curious to see if Bitcoin is going to kind of pull out this move of higher prices, if gold is going to go sideways. And that would really help Bitcoin a lot because people are going to pull, at least the smart money anyways, is going to pull their money out of gold and kind of put it in Bitcoin and kind of instead of, playing this game with altcoins that people, are so used to doing. They're going to have to adapt to doing it with gold because I think that's just the way that the world is changing right now. You may not like it, but instead of playing with your money and kind of these altcoins, the meme coins and stuff like that are always going to be there if you want to gamble like that. But as far as like instead of an alt season, I think we might have like a Bitcoin season or a gold season where it's like this push and pull of, up 10%, the other one is down 2.5%. And like they're gonna continue to play off each other. That would be
Okay.
something to watch out for. As far as how it sits right now, I think it's too early to tell, but
Okay,
definitely something to
cool.
watch out for.
Okay, cool.